Hello, lovely soul, and welcome to One. Let's talk. I'm pretty sure I'll bet anything on this, that at some point in time in your life, you have asked yourself this question. Why am I here? What's the point of our existence? And my favorite go-to to this question is, what was God thinking? Right? Like, why go through all this trouble to create all of life? These different universes and galaxies and dimensions and different life forms. What was God thinking? And you're going to find a number of different answers to that question, I promise you. But today, I'm going to choose to explore one version, one variation of that answer with you on this episode. Now, if you go to religion, you're going to find that different religions describe God in different ways. For example, some religions, they think of God or describe God as mercy. Others describe God as peace. And others describe God as this unconditional, total, and complete love. I think all of them are valid because to me, God is not limited to any one specific thing. God is basically all of them, has so many different personalities and so many different attributes and so many different expressions. That's how I see it. So all of them to me are valid. But there's one that is very interesting, and that God is a curious thing. God is a curious being. And it's because of his curiosity that we exist today. So let me tell you how this whole thing played out. One day, God was like, you know what? I'm curious. I am curious. I want to see what's out there. I want to see what's out there in the world. I want to explore because I'm so curious. And so he exploded and he just put himself out there and he expressed himself in everything, in all of life, every life form, all of creation. And that's exactly what God did. Everything that we see today is because of that curiosity. And interestingly enough, the ancients have a symbol for God. That the symbol of God is a circle with a dot inside of it. So we call this the circle dot or the circumpunct. Now, before I explain what that means, I'll be referring to God as He because I'm used to saying He when I talk about God. But keep in mind that God, or this infinite intelligence, is not gender-based. It's neither a he nor a she. And I will tell you why that is in this episode. So that's the symbol of God, a circle with a dot inside of it. Now you may tell me, okay, what's so special about that? Why a circle, right? Why not a triangle? Why not a square? Why not a heart? So why a circle? That's a very good question. See, it's so interesting how the ancients described it. And you're also going to find this in the Hindu tradition, I believe. God is, the way that they describe it, is both the center or the dot and the area, the periphery or the circumference of the circle. God is both. And interestingly enough, nothing exists outside of this circle. There's absolutely nothing outside of it, not even vacuum. Now that could be somewhat difficult for us to understand. It's okay. But imagine, nothing exists outside of that. So in other words, nothing exists outside of God. There's nothing. And inside of that circle, you have all creation and all destruction taking place. So there's death and rebirth, all the elements and the principles necessary to govern God's creation. So the eternal circles of life and death and rebirth, of creation and destruction, of assembling and disassembling, creating things and, building things, and also tearing them apart, destroying them and just disassembling the pieces. You have everything in that circle. And here's an even more interesting part that I will expand on throughout this talk. The dot in the middle of the circle is a masculine principle. And the periphery or the circumference of the circle is a feminine principle. There you have it, which is why God is neither male nor female. God is all inclusive, all encompassing. More on this later. Now, this is something that I find very interesting, that if you take any point on the periphery of the circle, just take any point and try to measure the distance between that point and the dot at the center. Now take another point and do the same. In fact, to make it even more interesting, take all the points, any point that you can find on the periphery, and measure the distance. Get the numerical value of that radius from the periphery to the center. And you're going to find that all of the points are equidistant. You're going to find the same value regardless of the point on the periphery. And the way I explain that is that God does not prefer one creation over the other. God is equally expressed in everything. All inanimate and animate beings. All different expressions of consciousness and different life forms. God is in everything. That is so beautiful. There's no preference when it comes to God. God is fair and just and loving toward all beings. That's what that means for me. Now, I want to talk about these two separately. I want to talk about the dot and the periphery because there's so much to be said here. Let's start with the dot. The dot is the center. It is a masculine principle. And if you think about it, there's a center in everything. Everything has a center. And I'm going to give you 3 examples. If you believe in this Hermetic principle of as above, so below, as within, so without, then this is going to make perfect sense for you. Take our solar system, for instance. This is an example that's found in the macrocosmos, right? In the heavens, let's say, in the skies. Our solar system. We know so well that the sun is the center of our solar system. And you have all these planets and asteroids and comets and space debris basically revolving around the sun. So they're orbiting the sun. The sun is the center of our solar system. Take yourself as another example. The trillions of cells that you have in your body. Each cell has a nucleus, and the nucleus is where your DNA is, your genetic makeup, your genetic material. Everything is found in the DNA, in the nucleus. So the nucleus is the center of the cell. That's another example that's found in the microcosmos, in us. Let's go down to a microscopic level now. Take atoms, for instance. The electrons that an atom has, they revolve around a nucleus. So the nucleus becomes the center of that atom. So you see, you have a center in everything. At a quantum level, in the macrocosmos and in the microcosmos. You have it everywhere. And the center is so important because the center keeps everything together. It's like this glue that holds everything together, that keeps everything orderly. It's responsible for order and structure. This is one of the meanings of the center. Let's go back to our examples. What do you think will happen if one day we just wake up to no sun? Like the sun has completely disappeared from our solar system. There's no more sun. It vanished out of thin air, gone. What do you think is going to happen to those planets, to everything that's revolving around the sun? All of those planets, scientifically speaking, they're going to disperse and they're going to move into the further regions of space. So there's going to be chaos in our solar system, complete collapse of the solar system as we understand it today, as we know it today, because the sun has disappeared. The center that held everything together, that kept order in our solar system, was gone. And the same idea applies to everything else. Even at the level of the microcosm, we know that, like I said, your genetic information, everything that makes you today, is found in your DNA, in the 2 strands of that helix. And what happens if suddenly all cells in your body no longer have any nuclei, no longer have any nucleus, what's going to happen? Like, you won't even exist. I won't even exist, because the genetic information that's responsible for your creation is gone. And the same thing can be said about the atom or atoms, the electrons that revolve around the nucleus. If the nucleus is gone, you can imagine what's going to happen to the electrons, again dispersed, and no more order, no more structure. So this is what the center does. It's there because it provides structure. It's an anchor. It's a support system. And it's because of this center that everything else exists. Everything else exists in an orderly fashion, the way that we just described. So the dot, or the center of the circle, is a masculine principle. It's spirit, you may say. It's a masculine force, a masculine energy. Now, what about the periphery? Why even have a periphery? Like, can't God just be the center? Just be the center, just be this dot, like just be spirit. Why also have a periphery? What is the point of that? This earth, or this plane, I should say this plane, is a plane of duality. This is a plane of polarity. This is where you're going to find contrast. This is where cosmic balance is best expressed, because you have the masculine and the feminine, right? The positive and the negative, the passive and the active, the giver and the receiver. You're going to have all kinds of contrasts, and you're going to have all kinds of duality expressions here on this plane, because this is the main characteristic of this planet, which is why God is not just expressed in the masculine, which is the center, but it's also expressed in the feminine. And we are no different. We are also created in God's image, right? Or another way to put it, if God is light, infinite, pure light, we're also divine sparks of light. In other words, we are created in His image. So just like God was curious and wanted to explore everything and express Himself in everything, we also have that same curiosity, or that same feature of exploration, of experience, life experience, which is why we have the periphery. We humans, we're not exclusively designed to just focus on the center all the time. We cannot do that. This, like I said, this is not the plane for that. We're here to also experience the human experience. We're not designed that way. Now, that's not to say, don't get me wrong, that there aren't people out there who prefer that lifestyle. They just want to meditate 24/7. They want to be in monasteries, or just seclude themselves from all of society and dedicate all of their time to, acts of devotion, to prayer, to meditation. I'm not saying that those kinds of people don't exist. It's very possible. It's a calling that it's not for everybody, but some people have it. That's fine. But for the most part, we are not designed that way. We also like to go out in the world and to experience the material realm, right? We like to study it. We like to interact with it, exchange energies with it. It's a magical experience. This is something that we all signed up for. To go out there and to experience all these different things. Everything that you do is basically you being at the periphery. Everything, you name it. You're showering, you're at the periphery. You're eating food, you're at the periphery. You're driving to work, at the periphery. You're hanging out with your friends, periphery. You're spending some time in nature, you're playing a video game, you're watching a movie, right? You're dancing, whatever it is that you're doing, that is you experiencing life. Yeah, you're at the periphery. It's part of the human experience. It's beautiful, and it's definitely not without a purpose. In a way, it's almost like what God is doing. When God chose to express Himself in everything, God was like, okay, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to collect information. I'm going to collect data. I want to experience life. I want to experience everything. So I'm going to collect information, and I'm going to explore and discover and come across all these findings. That's what God was intending to do, and that's exactly what God is doing. And because we're created in His image, that's also what we're doing. So we immerse ourselves in the human experience, right? And we just collect data. We collect information. And that is beautiful because all these different experiences, right? All these different things that you're going through, that you're experiencing at the periphery, let's say, they have God expressed in them. All of these experiences. So, in a way, it's kind of like you are giving yourself permission to get to know God in all these different experiences and all these different expressions of God or consciousness. Now, this is where things get interesting. What happens with most people, with a lot of people, I should say, because I don't want to generalize, what happens with a lot of people is that they stay at the periphery. They stay immersed in the human experience and they never go back to the center. They never reconnect with the center. They just lose sight, lose focus of the center, and they choose to just be immersed in the human experience and do all sorts of different things and never go back to the spirit. So there has to be a relationship here between the center and the periphery. You need to have both. There has to be a link here between these two. So things will only continue to exist and to prosper if that link is maintained. Think of it in this way. It's almost like that center is a source of nourishment. It's food. Yeah? And what happens is that most people, when they choose to just stay at the periphery, they cut themselves off from this center, from source. And nourishment will stop flowing into their lives. So it's kind of like saying they're completely disconnected from this life force that comes from the center. They deprive themselves of this life force that comes from the center of God. So those who sever the link, they will not get the clarity that they want, the nourishment that they need, this wisdom and love that comes from spirit. They will not be able to receive any of that because they've cut themselves off. They've severed the tie. They've severed this link. And link is a very important concept. I cannot stress this enough. Each person basically has 3 links, 3 cords, if you will. The first is a physical link. See, when you're a baby, you're a fetus in the womb of your mama, you are connected to your mama through your umbilical cord. You get all the nutrients that you need through this cord, this umbilical cord. And after you're born, what happens? The cord is cut. Because now, life welcomes you, and you are ready to fully immerse yourself in life as an individual human being. But you needed to have that cord at the beginning because that's how you got all the nutrients and the nourishment that you needed from your mom. Now, the second cord that we have is the silver cord. This cord is what links your soul to your human vessel, to the human, let's say, instrument or vehicle. This is how your soul is connected to this body. And once you die, upon death, this cord is cut. And this is how you transition into the spirit world. So there's that cord, that's the second one. And the third one is the one that links you to God, to the center. And many people, like I said, choose to cut this cord and completely detach themselves from God. So they may seem alive physically, like, they're doing their thing, they're living life, so to speak, this, and that. But spiritually, they're very malnourished because they've deprived themselves of this life force. They're even quote-unquote dead in that sense. So the periphery has so much to offer. The world is such a beautiful place. It is a challenging and rewarding school, especially if you're connected to the center, if you haven't severed the link that you have with the center. And this is exactly what I mean by one, by the way. One is the center. It is your anchor. And since I always say this phrase that you're in it, but you've already won, it is the periphery. You need the periphery and the center in order to get the best of both worlds. This is how I see it. I see value in both of them. In the periphery, I find diversity and separation in a way. That's where I find all these different vessels, different instruments, different vehicles of life, different human beings, different life forms, different everything. And that is beautiful. Each person is an individual. Each person has their own characteristics, their own personality traits, their own personalities, their own interests, their own gifts, their own talents, their own experiences, their own challenges, their own flaws and weaknesses, their own shadows. So in that sense, yeah, we are different. And diversity is beautiful in that way. And at the center, I find oneness. There's unity at the center. There is togetherness. Another way of looking at it is the roots of a tree and the branches. Both are important because once you've put down strong roots, you can then more freely venture out into the periphery. So you can more freely experience the world because your roots are strong. You know that there's a strong anchor. There's a beautiful, strong link here between the roots of that tree and the branches. Even Carl Jung said something along these lines, that I think the deeper the roots of a tree, the wiser the tree, something like that. Actually, he used the words, now that I remember, heaven and hell. So he said that once the roots reach the further regions of hell, then the tree will touch the higher levels of heaven, something like that. Although I don't want to use the word hell, I'd rather say earth for now, but you get the idea. So once you anchor yourself to the center that's within you, that is your one. And the material world and the human experience becomes your periphery. You see why this phrase of you're in it, but you've already won empowers me? Because, we can dissect this like till the end of time. So many precious meanings in there. And I'm so happy that I'm able to share them with you. Now that I've given you a tour of the circle dot and the symbol of God, there's so much more to be said about this matter, but I'm going to leave it at that. The question, the golden question becomes, how do I connect to the center? Well, there are so many ways to do this, honestly. I mean, there's meditation, prayer, creating art, dancing, contemplating in nature, sitting in silence, taking long walks, let's say, by the beach. I'm just naming things off the top of my head. There are so many ways, and there is no one right way. All of these methods work, by the way. You're just going to find the one that's more accessible to you, that feels right to you, that's effective for you. And it's going to be different for every person. But here's something that I do, a practice that I do that helps me. What's the first thing we do when we meditate? Something that we do in every meditative practice without any exceptions. Can you guess what it is? Don't we open and close our eyes? Yeah? In every meditative practice, that's the first thing they ask you to do. Close your eyes, please. And that holds a very deep meaning. See, when your eyes are open, yeah, you're wide awake, you are at the periphery. It's almost like you are interacting with life. You're learning, you're exploring, you're experiencing. So you are at the periphery, gathering this information, experiencing life. And what happens when you close your eyes? What's the meaning of that? It almost feels like you are going back to the center. You are connecting with the center within you, with the God within you, with the I am within you. So, here's something that I do. Before I meditate, I just bring my awareness to this piece of information. I close my eyes and I direct my awareness inward to the center within me. And I just stay there. Now, if you're not able to do this, if you feel like your thoughts are wandering and you're not able to just, sit still, you're not able to quiet this voice inside of you, that's okay. What I would recommend is that ask your higher self to guide you. Just set that intention out there that, please, I need some help here. Just tell me how to connect with my center. What do I do? Guide me, show me the way. And your higher self will. Just trust that you will get the answer that is best suitable for you as to how to connect to your center. You will get it. So, woof, what a juicy topic today. I love this. Love this a lot. As you guys know, on this podcast or channel, because you can listen to my podcast on Spotify and Podbean and all the other different platforms for podcasts, and also on YouTube. So everything that I talk about is basically under the banner of spirituality, alchemy, and empowerment. And polarity, like I said, like you saw in episode 5, I believe, when I was talking about yin and yang, is a key focus of this channel. So I hope that you were able to get some value out of this. I mean, I would love to know what you think. What's the thing that resonated with you the most? You can share those things with me in the comment section below. Love to hear about that. And if you guys are interested, you want to know more about these things, and you want my help or guidance around anything, then you can send me an email and you can check out my coaching packages. I've linked them in the description box below. Everything is super clear on the website. And if you have any questions about any of this, you can send me an email. I'm also going to put that in the description box below. Like I say in all my episodes, these are just my thoughts, okay? How I see the world. If they resonate with you and they're accepted by your mind, then great, they're your messages. If not, just let them go with love. And my closing remarks will be, don't forget to live life. Live it. Go out there. Experience everything. Listen to your desires, whatever they are. Just do it. Just have fun doing it. Yeah? And always go back to the center. Go back. Anchor yourself to the I am, to the God within you. It's going to make a world of a difference for you, I promise. Well, thank you for listening. As always, you are in it, but you've already won. Till next time.